Hello and welcome to another episode of Center Stage with ICS Theatre. I'm your host Anaita Mantri, ready to entertain you and lighten up your day with a little chat with someone from the world of theatre and films. Our guest today is a highly lauded contemporary English playwright in India. He has been regarded by theatre scholars as the definitive voice of modern urban India and as India's most thought provoking playwright. Please join me in welcoming to the show Mr. Mahesh Dattani. Mr. Dattani is a playwright, director, screenwriter, and a filmmaker. He is the recipient of the prestigious Sahitya Academy Award for his book of plays, Final Solutions, and Other Plays. Mr. Dattani's plays have been produced not only in India but also internationally. Many of his plays have been translated in several different languages such as Hindi, Gujarati, German, Japanese, Nepali, Odia, and Kannada. His most notable play, Dance Like a Man, has crossed over 630 performances and it continues to tour. Mr. Dattani's movies, too, have been screened in several international film festivals. Mango Souffle, which he wrote and directed, won Best Motion Picture at the Barcelona Film Festival in 2003. His film Morning Raga had its international premiere at the Cairo Film Festival and won the award for Best Artistic Contribution. His most recent works as a playwright were Where Did I Leave My Parda and Gauhar, both directed by Lilith Dubey. Mr. Dattani's work has received rave reviews from international press and literary magazines, including International Herald Tribune, the New York Times, and the Vasafari magazine. Welcome to Center Stage with ICS Theatre, Mr. Dattani.
Hello. Good evening to you.
Welcome here. We're so happy to talk to you today. Mr. Dattani, I'm just going to jump right into my questions with you. You've been associated with Indian contemporary theatre for about 40 years now. When did you first discover your love for theatre and what pulled you towards theatre?
Ah, okay. I think it probably goes back to when I was 10, 12. I can't remember how old I was when our parents took us to see. I grew up in Bangalore, and we had a very tightly knit Gujarati community. At that time, it was really small. And so, whenever a play from Gujarat or Bombay came, all of us were encouraged to come and attend. And, our parents took us, my sisters and I, and we as a family went there to support, Gujarati language. And I think this was the very first time I saw something as beautiful and magical as a play done by professional actors. And I remember that in the foyer, people were meeting after a very long time, and this was years, decades before social media and stuff like that. So there was this constant murmur, of catching up and matchmaking going on. Who's got an eligible boy for my girl, and and who's returned from Africa with lots of money. And at that time, Africa return was a big thing. And this sort of at the the organizers would keep making these pleas for people to get inside so they could begin the play, but everyone was so busy just sort of catching up on things, and very slowly they would sort of trickle into the auditorium, and I still didn't know what to expect, right? So we go in there, there's still all this chatter and people saying, over here, come sit with us, and all that stuff. And and of course people scurrying to sit near the fans or under the fans, because this was long before we had air conditioned halls. And the murmur continued, and it only stopped 5 minutes after the play began. Right, so even when the curtains came up and there were all these brightly lit, a beautiful set, and the actors and people were still talking, until in the play there was this moment when a gun came out of a drawer. And it was a lovely play with who's sort of sleeping with whom kind of comedy, which conservative Gujaratis just love. And once the gun came out, there was this silence. Suddenly the performers had the attention of the audience. And I remember at the end of the act, the gun was passed around, and even for me, with my complete naive sense of dramaturgy, I uh, I knew that somewhere at some point the gun is going to go off, uh, and you know, sure enough, at the end of the act, the actress who had the gun, she turns around in the direction of the audience and shoots at the chief guest. The chief guest who's, and then of course the chief guest falls down and is taken away, and it's interval, right? Now, there was this moment of silence before people could figure out what was happening. And obviously, this was staged, but it just seemed so incredible that this make believe world suddenly clashed
Mhm.
with the real world. And then everyone was chatting again, but they were talking about the play. And
Mhm.
I just thought that something like this, if it could shut 1,000 Gujaratis up, uh, I want to be a part of it. So it was uh, it was love at first sight. I mean, I can't put it any other way. Of course, it was a while later before I had the courage to do something in college, in school. I was a very shy kid. So it didn't occur to me that I could audition for the Christmas pageant and things like that.
Wow, that's such an incredible story of love at first sight in falling in love with theater. Um, you've been directing and writing plays for so many years now. On a personal level, what do you enjoy more, directing or writing?
Well, you see, earlier I would say that I wear different hats. Like when I'm directing, I wear my director's hat. When I'm writing, I'm wearing my writer's hat. But I think that's not entirely true. Uh, I think what I definitely want to avoid, and especially if I'm directing a play that I have written, which is always a second choice now, I would prefer to direct a play that somebody else, because then the process of exploring it and discovering the beauty of the script is very exciting. But one thing I discovered earlier that I used to do, that when I was directing, I was
Mhm.
actually lawyering my play. Right, as a director, I would defend my writing, and everything was as to why I'd written it.
Mm.
I think that's not the way to direct at all. I think a director has to be forward thinking. The intention is of the future as to how do I put this across to my audience, and how do I collaborate with my actors and designers to achieve that goal of sharing the experiences that the play world provides to an audience. So I think I enjoy both processes, and I must admit at times when I'm writing, I feel, oh God, why am I, all isolated and working in my space? I should be out there directing and collaborating with more creative people, right? And there are times when I'm directing, I say, oh God, do I have to put up with these actors and their egocentric behavior? Why can't I just sit at home and write? So you do have these moments as well. But I think for me now, I define myself as a theatre maker and not as a playwright or a director. So as a theatre maker, anything is possible. I would love to go back to designing sets, which I did a couple of times, although I'm not an expert. I've done a little bit of set designing earlier on, and I still am very fond of it. Um, so anything, and I think whether you're an actor or a director or a writer or a costume designer, lighting designer, set designer, ultimately we're all theater makers, and I think that's the magic of theater. And that's the magic of community theater as well, that you're playing more than one role. And this kind of holistic approach to theater making, I think, is very important, which cinema doesn't offer. In cinema, sometimes two actors may not have met in person at all, as you know, because it's all created in the editing, and everything is an isolated bit,
Right.
which is sort of very laboriously pieced together.
Mhm.
So, but theater has this thing that it's a spirit of communion, and it begins with the theater makers, and then that communion is expanded to include the audience as well.
But I must say, you wear all your hats beautifully and make it look so easy.
I try, yeah, I try to do that, and I think it's great when you're not wearing a hat, you're just it's your naked bald head out there, and ultimately it's what you create that matters, and nothing else does.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, ICS Theatre, how did you cross paths with ICS Theatre?
Ah, long story about, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago. I can't remember. I was invited by Barnard College in Columbia University to direct a play. And the play was Tagore's, adaptation of Tagore's Chokher Baling.
Mhm.
And I'll talk a little bit about that later. But members of the ICS theatre did come to see it. Barkha was there, and I think a couple of the committee members, Akshita and others, were there, and so they. I think they got my email address from a very roundabout way, from someone, a mutual friend in Canada. And suddenly, while I was still there in New York, I got the mail from ICS saying we'd love to meet you and discuss the possibilities of directing. So I had this lovely Italian lunch with them. Very fine ladies, and very sweet of them to treat me to an uptown New York Italian restaurant. So they won me over right away. And we discussed possibilities and promised to stay in touch. And so when I got back to Mumbai, India, we stayed in touch and discussed possibilities, and that was the beginning of a beautiful relationship.
Absolutely. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about Chokir Bali and your experience at Columbia?
Yeah, that's a very interesting story. Is that I got the job because another Indian theater director had to turn it down because he was working on a film assignment. And when it came to me, I put a film assignment on hold so I could do that. I was so excited by the offer, and it almost didn't happen because of various issues which don't really concern me, administrative issues and things. But it was a very interesting adaptation of Choker Bali, and I say adaptation because it sort of shifted the perspective from this very elite upper class family, which very much like Tagore's own family, the setting of Choker Bali. And in the adaptation done by Partho Chatterjee, an amazing professor and a true man of the theatre,
Mhm.
he sort of brought in the perspective of the servants who were a part of the household,
Mhm.
and sort of gave them some agency. And that helped a lot. And it also helped that Partho is a musician.
Mhm.
So I got, and a wonderful pianist. So he taught the piano to one of the actors who was playing Binodini, that she had to play the piano on stage. And also he trained the actors, and we trained them to sing a very famous Bengali song of that
Mm.
period. So that was great fun for the actors as well, because they could none of them understood a word of Bengali, and here they were, just singing full blast a Bengali song that's over 100 years old. What was really fascinating and completely, I've never done this before except once in Shanghai, is work with a multicultural cast. And to choose something that is quintessentially Bengali, very sort of period Bengali, where the manners, it's so much a story of manners that it was exciting because I'm not that familiar with Bengali culture, although I love it. So it was a discovery for me just as much as it was for the actors and the designers and everyone. So, right from day one, it was about wearing a sari right, or wearing that dhoti right, and the class distinctions, and how would this upper class person wear a sari or a dhoti, which is completely different from how someone who is working with their arms and legs would wear these garments. So it was a fascinating study for all of us, and everyone had a hard time in the beginning, and I made them learn a Bengali song, which
Wow.
yeah, I was fortunate that. The person who adapted the script to English was also a musician. So it was I could use his talents to teach them the song, and all the cultural clashes came right there, because the actors were just waiting, and he said that let's begin, and they said, but where's the music? And he said, I'm giving you the music. And they said, no, we can't do it, because unless it's written down, we don't know how to do it. And then that's where the learning began, that we learn by the year, we listen. And even so much of text work, traditionally, of course, things have changed now, was oral. Right, so that was a fascinating experience for the actors to do that, and I've never, I could go on and on about it, but I, I could, I don't think I've ever had a production, with such a large budget as well. And maybe by American university standards, at drama school standards, it was a moderate sized budget, although I suspect that even by American standards, it was quite, I mean, this is Colombia. So that was a completely different experience for me, and just the figures. I thought I made some calculations that I have made a feature film in India for about that budget, but it was something I will remember for the rest of my life. I really enjoyed working cross culturally in any sense of the word. And I think working cross culturally, artistically, I think is the most challenging but also the most rewarding experience.
That is an amazing story. When you first, came to New Jersey and worked with ICS Theatre, your first play was Miss Rhino, which was performed, I believe, at the Ohio South Asian Theatre Festival, and then in New Jersey. That was back in 2016, I believe. Um, what was your experience like in your first interaction and first experience working with ICS Theatre?
Well, it was again new territory, but at the same time, I started off working as a community theatre artist. I didn't train in Bangalore. All my earlier works, whether it's Where There's a Will or Dance Like a Man, Tara, right all the way up to Final Solutions, were done in the spirit of community theatre. So I was aware of that, and I was also aware that as Americans, that you have a system in place, and that people respect each other's time and everything. I'm not running down what I did in Bangalore. It was amazing, but it's a different culture altogether, right? What helped was, of course, the Indian connection, that ICS Theatre is predominantly members of South Asian origin. Um, and I think really what worked for me was the fact that I had someone as dedicated and as skilled as Barkha Kishnani, who was the stage manager. So it was possible for me to sort of raise the bar. And I didn't want to come with the attitude, oh, this is community theater. We'll just see what the actors can do and just, work around that, which is one way of doing it, and it's not bad. But I just felt that, there's all this talent and
Mhm.
there's all this dedication, and I sussed it out that they're all willing to learn, right? And so I set off with doing a workshop with them, because the play, as you well know, it's a beautiful play. It's so well written from the heart, and it's written by an American set in India, so it does offer this very special perspective, very different to what's going on, and it had these very nice imaginative transitions from from bureaucratic government offices to a field in rural India and things. And I thought the best would be to engage the actors' imagination in that. And so we just worked with benches, and we just had a kind of a uniform where everyone wore Hessian cloth, what I think in America it's called burlap.
I
So
see.
of course, it's not realistic. I mean, people don't wear burlap unless it's a shawl or an overcoat or something to prevent the cold. But it's just the fact that they are hands-on workers, and that there is a lovely, rich, rough texture to the kind of work. I thought the burlap would represent that very well. So I used some Michael Chekhov technique and worked with archetypal gestures, and
Mhm.
benches became like bullock carts. They became desks in offices. They became doors that open and shut on the protagonist, and and we had these long scarves also made with mull, almost like dupattas. And so it was very interesting, and I was extremely happy with the result. And I think a lot of it is because of the involvement of the actors, that they were willing to learn. And I couldn't believe it, that these are people who hold day jobs, or are busy at home, and is setting aside all that time with family to come to rehearsals and work on something. And that itself was such a unique experience. And you know, it's sometimes harder for community theater artists to do than professionals, because as a professional, this is all, that's the difference really, basically, that as a professional you're dedicated, this is your job, right?
Right.
Whereas with community theater, as you well know, you're a part of it, is that you're setting aside time from your job and your family to do it because you're passionately involved. So, yes, I think it was a great start for me.
Absolutely. And I'm sure ICS Theatre is, blessed to have you by their side to work with year after year. And I want to get to the question about your very creative use of props and items for your productions. But we'll come to that in a little bit. Before that, I want to ask a little fun, light-hearted question. I know there was a long trip to Ohio for Ms. Rana to perform there with all of the actors and you in tow in a bus traveling across the United States. Any fond memories from that trip?
Anaita, I think that's a wicked question, because you probably know what happened on that.
No, I
I mean,
swear I
on
really don't
hindsight.
know. I don't know.
Okay, okay. I believe you. Okay. No, I think, well, first of all, you know, I have sort of traveled with a group again in Bangalore when we took up a production to Bombay, and very much in a similar spirit of, you know, loading the sets ourselves onto the train, and you know, sitting with set pieces and holding prop pieces on your lap when you're in the train. Of course, this was a little different. It was a hired truck that we all went in. So
Uh,
in a sense, the spirit of traveling together was definitely there. But Anaita, remember that when I did that in Bangalore, I was younger, right? So I was a part of the noise making and the, you know, the raucous. I remember in the train compartment there were, you know, senior passengers who
mhm.
objected to the noise we were making, and at that stage we would say, "Gosh, what cranks!" You know, real wet blankets and things. And here I was, you know, 35 years later, with this group, and they're all having such a great time listening to this raucous music, which I hate. You know, nothing sort of annoys me more than Bollywood music played at this loud decibel level, because as it is in Bollywood, the sound design is loud, louder, loudest, right? And then when you play it loudest, you know, it just sounds like noise. And you know, I said, "Oh my God, I wish I'd got my noise cancellation earphones or something so I could deal with this." And of course, they humored me. God bless them. But I'm sure they were thinking the same thing I thought of those senior co-passengers when we were young and making all that noise. That we should have sort of sent him by flight, you know. But they were very respectful, and I think Aditya Date, our musician, had this bright idea of playing a song from one of my movies,
Yeah.
right? And from Morning Raga, and that
Mhm.
just quieted me down so well, you know. And then I was saying, "Oh, how nice," you know. So they really knew how to sort of you know, get my stomach acids to quieten down a little bit, you know. So that was great fun. On hindsight,
Yeah.
I think it was absolutely beautiful, and God bless them all. Wonderful souls. And of course, interacting with, artists from the Epic Theatre and the other theatre companies we met in Ohio.
Mm,
They were wonderful. I mean, they'd laid out this. They were busy with the play themselves, but
mm,
they'd laid out this fabulous dinner for us after our show. And as you well know, you're American, so you know that you don't have house help to help with all the cooking and cleaning, and everyone is
sure.
doing while they're also working on their play. And that just made it so special. I
Mm.
think it was a great trip. And of course, the play was well received as well. So it was, all in all, a fun trip.
And in short, it was a beautiful beginning to a long and exciting relationship with ICS Theatre.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And then in 2017, you were back in New Jersey to do Chikov, which is translated from 8 short stories by Anton Chekhov. Um,
That
right? And I know that in each of your plays, you have this very innovative use of everyday items. It could be anything used as props for set design, and it gives this very unique and eclectic touch to all of your productions. For example, in Chuck Chekhov, you used 95, I've heard, milk crates on stage. Now, 95 is not a small number. That must have been quite a logistical challenge to accomplish.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if it comes to logistical challenges, I rely completely on my stage man. I couldn't have done it without Barkha, because she's just so amazing. I remember Barkha and I, we were grocery shopping somewhere, I think at Patel's or something. And I saw these boxes outside and I said, Barkha, what are those? Because milk crates look different in India. And she said, well, those are milk crates. And so I went and picked one up and realized that they're beautifully designed because they interconnect. So it's easy to
Right.
transport them,
Stacks
right?
them.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, stack them,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, good. Are they very expensive? And she said, well, sometimes you could just get them for free. And so I shared my idea with her that why don't we just sort of, use them like Lego blocks and
Mhm.
stack them and change the set, the way we wanted for each story. And she was excited with the idea. So she rustled up her team and said, okay, guys, girls, you're going to get milk crates. And I don't care whether you steal them, beg for them, or buy them, just get me 100 milk crates.
Wow.
So there was this Operation Milk Crate stealing, which ICS theatre actors are, complicit of and abetted that crime beautifully. Because at every rehearsals, there were people opening up their boots and unloading 3 or 4 milk crates. And very soon we had all these stacked up in our rehearsal space. And we said, okay, let's see. And everyone got involved in sort of creating these set pieces. And then the challenge is that how do we do this between stories so that it's not boring for the audience to wait for the thing to change. Then we thought, why drop the lights? Let them see and marvel at how the actors are making the set change. And Barkha was all for it, and she had this drill right
Mhm.
down to the T as to which actor is going to move which crate and what happens in case there is some problem and it falls down. So there were all these contingency plans and everything in place. And ultimately, what was very rewarding for Barkha, for the actors, for me, and everyone, was that the audiences just marveled at how we use those milk crates to create those sets magically. And I think for me, I think the best one, and I think it's Barkha's favorite as well, is that there is this a story, Chekhov, beautiful story about, you know, of them sort of well, in the original story it's a sled ride down a snowy slope, and we
Mhm.
made it a mela, right, and they're on this Ferris wheel.
Seriously.
Yeah, that's right. And we had the actors simulating the rising and the falling, and they all did that beautifully, using the crates as handles, as if they're sitting in the wheel and sitting on top and coming down. And everyone was involved with the whole illusion of this. And of course, the audiences received it really well. And I thought that was quite an achievement.
Definitely does sound like quite an achievement. So then came Rakt Phera in 2018, which was translated by Abhinav Grover from Federico Garcia Lorca's Blood Wedding. Um, any special memories in that one? I know there were some really cool special effects that you did in that one too.
Yeah, well, yes, lots of memories. Um, as you know, the original Spanish play has somehow it hasn't been successful in an English translation. And I was very fortunate working with Abhinav in Bombay, who was my student when he was at drama school. And later, when I did another play by Lorca, Yerma, which I adapted to this Rajasthani Haryanvi setting, Abhinav was familiar with that culture and the ethos and the language, and he's amazing with language. So he transcreated a lot of the poetry of Lorca, which was not accessible to us. We tried to get a Spanish speaking person to give us some idea of how the poetry sounds in the original Spanish. But then after a while, we just gave up the effort and decided that let's just recreate the poetry, take the essence, and Abhinav did a beautiful job. So when we were looking for a play for ICS next, the next production for ICS, I was very confident with what the group could do based on Masrayan and Chakte Chekhov. So I thought this is quite an ambitious project, and even with the drama school students who were in training for a year, it was quite a challenge working with something as powerful and electric and dramatic as Lorca's writing, and working with an ethos which even the students, not all of, very few of them, came from that ethos. And here I was working with ICS theatre company, where almost everyone was an American citizen. Um, but I knew I trusted them, and I said, okay, let's do it. So I asked Abhinav to translate Blood Wedding, because I could just see the possibilities with the kind of cast we had. And again, he came up with a beautiful and I remember Barkha calling me when she read the script. It said, "My God, this is a dialect of Hindi. It's not even. How are we going to do it?" And I'd cast some people like. Barkha's daughter Charisma, a
Mhm.
beautiful and wonderful actor, but American, right? And for her to work on a very, not just Hindi, but a very specific dialect. But then, people worked on it, and it was absolutely amazing, the result. I worked a lot on the emotions and how we could sort of make them very believable and authentic rather than emoting them in a melodramatic way. So I used something that Richard Schechner uses called the Rasa box, and I had no problems stealing it from him because, well, he stole it from the Natya Shastra. It's good to steal and create something with it. So I worked on that. It's an exercise where you have 9 blocks, one for each rasa, and the
Mm-hmm.
actors step on one, and then whatever rasa which they work on the breathing first as to how does that evoking that feeling or that emotion, how does it change your breath and how does it move the body. So this was I think it broke a lot of barriers that we have about actor training. That it requires years and years of training, which of course is it does. But here, where people with little or no training doing something which traditionally in India, if you were to learn under a traditional guru shishya system, they would never teach you navrasa or bhav till at least 10 years into your practice. If you were studying Kodiyatam or Kathakali or even Bharatnatyam, which I've studied only for 6 years though. So it was a bit of a cheeky thing to do, but cheeky things are good in the theater because we are known to do things which may seem impossible, and and something beautiful came out of it. And I remember audiences saying that the emotions and the colors, which were connected to the emotion, because thematically it was a lot of red, families of reds and oranges that I used, and the actors were sort of completely in sync with those emotional, fiery colors. And I thought I'm very pleased with the result, and I feel that in no way was it, did I get the sense that these are inexperienced actors trying on, something that they've bitten off more than they could chew. That definitely wasn't, because I did have my reservations earlier into rehearsals that am I sort of pushing them in areas which they are not prepared to sort of execute with believability, but I was wrong. They did that, I thought, beautifully.
And I know that you had used some effect of having some paper covered and creating this effect of the blood flowing or something like that. Tell us a little bit about that. How
Oh,
did
oh, right, right. I thought that worked beautifully because in the play, for those, it comes across as a nice domestic conflict, a family
Mhm.
drama in the first two acts, and then suddenly it gets all poetic and metaphoric, and the kind of symbolism that Lorca is famous for.
Mhm.
And I felt that, okay, I think we should treat the whole play with the symbolism and metaphor. And what we had was a red carpet
Mhm.
over which we had a brown one. And later on, when Death comes in, which was performed beautifully by Gayatri Desai,
Mhm.
and I had this sort of billowing black uh, fabric for Death, which could had the potential of covering the entire stage once it spread out, and it was like a cape, a heavy cape, which came. And in this scene where the two boys that kill each other, and there's Death, right? Death comes and
Mhm.
she covers the entire stage with
Mhm.
black, and the costume just billows. I had actors sort of billowing the cape, and so you had this huge sort of billowing effect of Death
Mhm.
descending on them. And in the end, when the women are mourning,
Mhm.
Death walks away, taking her black cape, revealing the red carpet. So you had this sort of scarlet red carpet and very harsh, intense amber light, and the women all keening. And I did the keening very silently. They did not scream, but
Mm.
we had all the rituals of mourning, which in the Rajasthan, Haryana area, it's very codified, the screaming and the beating of the chest and everything. And to counter that, I had the mother, played by Barkha, singing a lullaby
Mm.
to the song, to the son she's just lost. I think they pulled it off really well. And for Barkha as an actor, I think it was quite a challenge not to break down and cry, because it's such a beautiful emotional moment in the play when this happens. And all of them were so involved in it. But I think the standing ovation they got was reward enough to know that they did manage to very authentically and beautifully uh, uh, um, convey those experiences and emotions of love and desire and death and all those themes that Lorca, provides in very complex patterns, that they could somehow get that across, some of it across, was amazing. That was truly a miracle.
Wow. Just hearing about it gives me goosebumps. I wish I had seen it. Now, in one of your later plays in 2019, you did Chikov Express, which was another set of short stories by Anton Chekhov. Um, in this particular play, you had incorporated the model of movement and grid walk within the scenes and how the scenes switch from one to another. What was that concept all about?
Well, it was inspired from. I'd just done a workshop with Rose Schweitz, who was traveling in India and came to Bombay to work with professional actors on viewpoints, Mary Overley's viewpoints, which is a technique where the actor responds to the architecture of the space. That's one of the viewpoints, architecture, which I thought it would be very interesting to use in this, because the stories that I had curated for Chekhov Express, as the name suggests, were stories around the railways. The theme came about because in Chekhov's time, which was like, over 100 years ago, the Trans-Siberian Railway network was just developing. And a lot of his short stories revolves around travel by train or amongst railway workers and the emerging culture with technology. And he had mixed feelings about this modern technology. And the fact is that in India we have a huge railway network, which is still very vibrant and is the backbone of our trans-state travel and transportation, right? So I thought, how best can I incorporate this setting without making a very literal set of a railway? So I thought the best way, the grid actually began as an exercise which I took to train the actors, and I thought it would be nice to use this sort of grid. In the grid walk, basically all the actors are walking in straight lines and turn in right angles. You're not allowed curves, right?
Mhm.
Now, here's the thing: is you don't know which direction your co-actor is going in, and you avoid a clash by
Mm.
sort of spontaneously changing directions, right? And you do it in different paces. You do it quickly, you do it slow, you do it in a sort of neutral walk and things. Suddenly it looked like I had the railway network emerging right there. And so I decided that that could be a transition that we could use between the stories. And also we incorporated that into, moving the set. Basically, there were platforms on wheels which became railway carriages, or it became the boudoir of a house of ill repute in one play, and so it was it had multiple uses. Yeah.
So, in every play, I understand you've done with ICS Theatre, you've given the actors kind of a crash course or some sort of a workshop in different techniques employed by theatre actors. Do you think that this model works best for community theatre in general, or is this something you've adopted specifically for ICS Theatre? Like, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, it works differently. I haven't developed it for ICS because even here in Bombay, when I'm rehearsing with professional actors, I do spend some time workshopping it before coming to the script to just get them sort of articulated with their mind and body. So that helps in the script analysis, that it's not an intellectual exercise, then it becomes a little more active. But the purpose of doing it for ICST was slightly different, was not just for imparting training, because it's too short a process to actually say the actors are trained in viewpoints, or in Chekov's archetypal or psychological gestures. But what it provides is that it gives us a vocabulary to work in when we're doing the active analysis of the script. For example, if I've sort of used the archetypal gestures in the workshop, which I did for Masrayan, I would tell them that, look, this beat, he's reaching to her. He's reaching because he wants to tell her that, you know, he can't live without her.
Mhm.
And so that reach, then and maybe someone else is smashing an idea or smashing a relationship. So the vocabulary then helps in communication, because I think the biggest challenge, and it's not limited to community theatre, I've seen it in professional theatre as well, is that what the director wants and what the actors understand may be different things. And the last thing you want is the actor to say, okay, if this is what the director wants, I'll just do it. That can be completely uninspiring to the actor. And what's more important is it'll show in the performance. So you are looking at making the actors feel they own what they're doing. That's very important, that they get a sense of ownership. And so I think this kind of common vocabulary, so we're beginning in the rehearsal space with the knowledge that we're both sophisticated in this language, in the vocabulary, at least on a conceptual level, even if we haven't really sort of imparted it as actors training completely, right? So I think it helps immensely with the work, and it has been very successful so far, working with the ICST actors with this kind of approach to not only analyzing the script, but also in blocking the play and understanding the dynamics of movement on stage, and how it is related to character and interactions and things.
Coming to my last question for today, you are known for having this very customized and mostly live music in every one of your plays. In fact, many times that is the highlight of so many of your production pieces. Uh, in Chekov Express, however, that was the only play which was without any live music. Why was that?
Well, number one is that I think the musicians I wanted were not available for rehearsals. And number two is that sometimes a limit can open up creative channels. And Aditya Date, whom I respect his talent immensely. Not only is he a wonderful musician, he is actually a very good lyric writer, writer of
Mhm.
lyrics. So he wrote this wonderful a song about train journeys in India, with the chai, coffee, thanda, garam, and the sort of dhabak, 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 giving us the rhythmic. And I thought this is pure theater. And I thought it'll be great if the actors, as a chorus, actually used these sounds in different ways to create musicality. It may not be
Mm,
music in the sense as we understand it with instruments and voices that carry a note, right? That this was rhythmic. It had its own music, and it had its own. The voices had their own quality, which could be musical. And this is something I learned a long time ago from B.V. Karant, who was like a theater legend in his time in Bangalore. I remember attending one of his rehearsals when I was a rookie, and was so fixated with sound effects live, the creaking of a door. He would get actors to sort of create these sounds. And he told me later when we were having dinner together that, you know, in theater, even noise is music. You have to approach noise as a form of music. And I think that stayed with me, and I could use that in Chekhov Express with that. So I would say that it's not that I didn't have music in it, but it came from a different source.
right.
And I think it ended beautifully. The curtain call was the entire song, and it was almost performed rap like, which gave us the sort of the the choppy movement of Indian railways, where
Right, right.
you're constantly getting this sort of tabak 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 tabak.
Yes, absolutely. And I've seen Chekhov Express, and I can totally understand what you're saying because that really, put the whole thing together to give the effect, and the end result was absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
So,
Yes, yeah, I'm glad you saw that.
no, I did. I absolutely enjoyed it. It was lovely. Um, so this concludes the first part of our heart to heart with Mr. Dattani. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you, Anaita. Thank you so much for those questions. They were absolutely inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you again. So stay tuned for our next episode where we will talk some more with Mr. Dattani about his work with ICS Theatre and how he has kept theatre enthusiasts engaged and helped them learn and grow as actors for the past year, even during this pandemic. I want to leave you with a fascinating tidbit about theatre that Mr. Dattani mentioned in the beginning regarding his first experience going to see a play and the fourth wall, as we call it. I read in an article published in the Vox magazine some time ago where the author wrote, what makes theatre unique as an artistic medium is that the audience can talk directly to the play and the play can talk back. The immediacy of theatre makes it more moving, but that same immediacy also makes it more vulnerable to disruption from both sides of the fourth wall. The reason live theater is so electric and so thrilling is because the audience knows that At any time, anything could go terribly wrong. If someone so much as sneezes at the wrong moment or something falls, everything could go to pieces in a matter of moments. So the next time when you're enjoying a live show, I want you to take in every bit of the play because, in spite of the possibility of so many things that could go wrong, the cast and the crew are holding it together for you, the audience. That's it from me today, folks. I'm your host, Anaita Mantri, signing off. I'll see you next time on Center Stage with ICS Theatre. Until then, please mask up, stay safe, and support the art. Thank you for watching and have a great night.